The views expressed in this podcast are not to be taken as either trading nor financial advice. Neither the announcer nor the Sirius Report make any claims to be certified financial advisors, and all reporting is dedicated solely towards being both informative and educational. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Sirius Report Market Wrap-Up for Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Today, we've got to take a look at, finally, some movement is taking in the oil market after all of the potential disarray that's taking place in the Middle East, in West Asia. We're going to take a look at some economic data, and we're going to take a look at how some of the policy choices of the last administration are affecting the economy and heading into the election overall. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and jump right in and see how the markets fared. Well, everything was red across the board, some worse than others. The Dow was down 184 points to 42,011, while the S&P 500 was down 9.6 points to 5699, and the Nasdaq was down 6.65 points to 17,918. In the bond markets, yields spiked across the board. The 2-year was up 0.068 to close out above 3.7%, 3.705 to be exact, and the 10-year climbed above the 3.8% range, up 0.061 for the day. In the dollar markets, well, we talked about yesterday the yen, but the dollar continues to strengthen as Europe and Japan fall further into economic decline. The dollar was up 27 cents on the DXY to close out at 101.95, while gold and silver were relatively flat. Silver was up 19 cents on the day to close out at 32.09, and gold was down $3, closing out at 26.5650. In the crypto markets, it was a relatively flat day. With the last 24 hours of trading, Bitcoin was up 0.25%, a quarter point of percent, to 60,783, while Ethereum was down 0.71% for the third day in a row of a downturn to close out at 23.47. Now moving over to oil, we had a nearly $4 spike both in WTI and Brent crude. WTI was up $3.61 to close out the trading day at 73.71, while Brent crude was up $4.01 to 77.91. Well, oil surges on report. Biden is discussing Israeli strikes on Iranian oil facilities. With the world on edge over the shape of Israel's retaliation to Iran for recent ballistic missile assault, which, just like in April, was performative as it damaged absolutely nothing and killed just one person, we learned that the Biden administration, who may or may not still be president, is opposing an attack on Iran's nuclear sites, while also informing Iran not to attack its Mideast bases. Yet, Israel has to do something, which is why moments ago, news spread that President Biden was asked by reporters outside of the White House if he would support Israel striking Iran's oil facilities, and he said, "We're discussing that." And immediately, crude oil spiked because the algos always listen to the news. In the economic data for the day, U.S. Services Survey soars in September with prices paid exploding higher. Welcome back, inflation. After weakness in the manufacturing surveys, this morning's services sector surveys were yet another hope-filled data point to support the soft landing narrative. S&P Global's U.S. Services PMI was relatively steady at 55.2, near its highest since March of 2022, while Services PMI surged to 54.9, well above the 51.7 print expected and the highest since February of 2023. So we have another month where expectations for surveys or for jobs, or for GDP, get boosted higher leading into the election. How much can we trust? Who knows at this point? But the reality is that prices higher in PMI, both manufacturing and services, means that inflation is coming back for the cost of doing business. In the jobless claims bucket, jobless claims remain low despite a 50% plus surge in job cuts. Like I said, the data, you cannot trust it. On the heels of a 53.4% year-over-year rise in job cut announcements, initial jobless claims remain in a world of their own, rising very modestly 6,000 jobs, or 6,000 unemployed, to 225,000 from 219. Initial claims and retaining claims remain range-bound, showing absolutely zero indication of labor market stress. Continuing claims were flat at 1.826 million Americans, so they're going to make sure this is completely shuttered with 1 month left, especially we go into the first week leading into the election. After that, will they report the truth? Likely, if one individual gets put in office, but after that, it won't matter because they'll have control for the next 4 years. Okay, America last. Well, let's see. Let's take a look. There is hundreds of billions of dollars that went to Ukraine. There's $2,500 a month on average that go to illegal aliens who came into the country. There is $700 that was given to the people who in Hawaii who went through that devastation. And now an announcement from FEMA as well as Vice President Kamala Harris, $750 if needed to individuals due to Hurricane Helene. The Biden administration's America Last policies have left the country vulnerable between draining the strategic petroleum reserve, sending hundreds of billions in cash to the Ukraine, as I mentioned, including electrical transformers that are now needed, 370 substations destroyed, and FEMA spending $640 million to help migrants. The agency, FEMA, announced, Mayorkas today, we don't have any money. So we have this deficit spending of over $2 trillion this year, $130 billion spent yesterday alone. None of it went to the Southeast due to the hurricane, and now they don't have any money. Well, do you think Congress ought to rush in before the election because they're on their break to go ahead and vote in an emergency funds? I would, but unfortunately, I wouldn't trust this administration to spend the money where it's supposed to be spent. This is really going to have some draw some ire when it comes to the South and when it comes to those who trust the government to be able to help them in emergency. Finally, the last thing we're going to take a look at, where and why were so many illegal immigrants, refugees, migrants, whatever you want to call them, brought into the country? Well, we know that a number of them were brought in from NGOs. We know a number of them were shipped directly from Venezuela by the Biden administration and the Homeland Security. But who else benefits from it? Is it just about voting? Well, how about staffing companies that want to fill jobs, American jobs, with lower wage earners? Large staffing companies that thrived during the Afghan and Iraq wars under the Bush-Obama years retooled their business models as the U.S. involvement in the war funding in the Middle East wound down. God, that reminds me so much of 1991 to 1996 when the Cold War ended. A lot of the companies that were getting government money for decades all of a sudden found themselves SOL. And so they lobbied Congress and NAFTA was born and they offshored for cheaper labor. Now these staffing firms seem to be profiting off the Biden-Harris administration's open border migrant invasion by providing essential services such as private security, transportation, many other services to ensure the Fed's migrant network operates smoothly. These companies are likely awarded handsome contracts paid by the taxpayer. Busing and housing millions of illegal and legal aliens is big business for staffing companies and nonprofits. Americans have to realize their tax dollars are being spent while the migrants displace and replace blue-collar jobs and small town factories everywhere, such as Springfield, Ohio, Charleroi, Pennsylvania. This is firsthand knowledge that they know of, and there have been reports coming from Colorado in some of the food processing factories. So, who needs AI when you have an open border? It accomplishes the same thing. Anyway, I want to thank everybody as always for stopping by to get your market wrap up for Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. Thanks to everybody for being a part of the Sirius Report community. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment. Send this out to anybody you think it might be of importance to. And until the next time we get together, everyone, have a great Thursday.